All right, what is happening? How's everyone doing today? My name is Chuck, and welcome back to a brand new video. Today here in Modern Warfare, I'm going to be taking you guys my top 5 classes, my 5 most overpowered classes for you guys to use here in Modern Warfare. But before we get into that, if you guys could smash 11.3 likes on today's video, that would be fantastic. Really would mean a lot to me. And that's right, I see you, Steve Rogers, watching my video and recommended, but not hitting that subscribe button. I don't know what you're doing. Subscribe with those notifications turned on. All right, so hopping into this, we're gonna be taking a look at our first gun here, which is gonna be the M4A1, as this is a trusty gun that has been throughout the entire life cycle of Modern Warfare. And I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna build this right here with you guys. We're gonna go through every single thing you guys need to know about the M4 and how to make it the most overpowered version of the M4A1 possible. Okay, so now we're right here in the muzzle category. We have a variety of options: a flash guard, breacher device, tactical suppressor, so on and so forth, all the way down. What I usually always say is that if you're using a muzzle, which is, basically what you should be using, 7 days a week, 10 times out of 10, basically you're gonna have to use either the tactical suppressor or you're gonna have to use the monolithic suppressor. And the only reason I'd ever say use the tactical is that if you don't have the monolithic unlocked. This is by far one of the better attachments to use on basically almost every gun in Modern Warfare, so I'm not gonna spend too much time on it. But if you don't have, the monolithic, use the tactical, and if you do have the monolithic, then throw this bad boy on here because it is very, very good. Next up here, we have our barrel attachment, which we're going to go through and take a look at. So we have 5 different options in here, and let's go through all of these. So we have the Commando, the Grenadier, Grenadier, whatever you want to call it, the Attack Light, the Corvus Custom Marksman, and the Predator. I know there is a lot of debate out there about using either the Corvus Custom Marksman or the M16 Grenadier barrel, but to be honest with you guys, keeping it a full stack, keeping it a buck, I'm going to use the stock M16 Grenadier barrel just because it gives me a little bit more range, bullet velocity and recoil control compared to the Corvus Custom Marksman. I just like it that much more, and to be honest, I don't know, it's just always suited me since the beginning of using the M4. It is just absolutely fantastic. And you guys obviously can have your own personal preference, but to be honest, I just say I like the stock M16 barrel, so that's going to be our second attachment here on our M4A1. Next up, we're going to go down here to our underbarrel, and I'm assuming a lot of you guys are going to be like, all right, Chuck, you're going to go ahead and throw on the Commando foregrip. But nope, we're not throwing on the Commando foregrip this time because we're switching it up here just a little bit because we have a different M4 setup that's going to give you guys a bit more mobility. So we have, obviously the Commando here, which you could 100% use if you really want to. We have the Merc foregrip, the tactical, your bipod for whatever reason, I don't know why you'd use that, the Ranger, and then the Operator. But like I always say, the tactical and then the Operator are basically useless in my opinion. I don't really know why they're even there. We'd be fine with just these other 3 options, the Ranger, the Merc, and then the Commando, but hey, I guess more options for, different people. But anyways, we're not going to be using the Commando. We're not going to be using the Merc. We're actually going to go down here and use the Ranger foregrip, and this is actually really good to use in multiplayer also and in Warzone, by the way. So I would actually say we're going to go ahead and use the Ranger foregrip, and that's going to be our 3rd attachment. And the reason we're actually going to be using this is actually going to be shown here a little bit later on, so let's keep on going here. The next up, we're gonna have to deal with our ammunition, and we have 4 different things here, but listen, we're just gonna keep it a stack and a half right here. No one's using the Para 32 round magazine. No one's trying to make this thing into a DMR. We're not trying to do that. So basically, forget these 2 options right here even really exist. It's just not even like, don't use them. So we have options here for the 50 round mag and the 60 round mag, and to be honest, this definitely does count a personal preference, but in multiplayer, I do feel that at least when I'm running a 50 round magazine, that is definitely more than enough ammo, and it does give me the desired amount of mobility I want. So I will then run the 50 round magazine as my 4th attachment here on the M4A1. You can 100% run the 60 round if you really want to, but for this, build right now, we're actually gonna go ahead and do that. And now you've been saying to yourselves, okay, now we have, all these different options chosen, and now we have a couple of these things left, and we're just gonna skip right over the laser category. We do not need an optic. We can use a stock, we can use a perk, and we can also use a rear grip. So what a lot of people like to do, and that I actually have done beforehand, is I've gone down here and I've used something like, let's say, the stippled grip tape, but we're actually going to forego using the stippled grip tape here this time because we have the Ranger foregrip, and I wanted to kind of, give us, that really good controllability without actually just using something like, let's say, the stippled and making this more or less like another M4A1 class setup. We're actually going to go in here to the stock category, and what we're going to go ahead and choose is the no stock attachment. And the reason we're actually using the no stock attachment is even though it did technically get a bit of a nerf. You got a lot of mobility with this thing, and also we have, the Ranger foregrip to help with the recoil recoil, the stock M16 Grenadier barrel to help with the recoil, and obviously we're not going to get too much bounce around and all that sort of stuff using the 50-round magazine in here. So obviously, you know, this is actually going to be a very mobile M4A1 class setup that's actually really overpowered, and I absolutely love using this, and I just dominate basically every single, you know, game I touch with this thing. It's absolutely fantastic, but that is our first class setup here in the top 5 overpowered classes. All right, so for our second one here, we're actually going to go ahead and we're going to pick up the MP5, a tried and true, the trusty, you know, much like the M4A1, one of the top tier SMGs, if not the most top tier SMG in Modern Warfare. So let's actually go through here and take a look at this. So we have obviously a variety of options in here, and this is actually another thing that comes down to some personal preference, but actually we have, you know, a lot of options in here for our muzzle. We can use a lot of different stuff, and to be honest with you, you know, a lot of people like running the monolithic suppressor on here, but a lot of other people also like running the monolithic integral. But I mean, you know, just for my personal taste, I love running the monolithic suppressor here on this gun, just right how it is like this. So that's going to be our first attachment on our MP5, is actually going to be using the muzzle monolithic suppressor, and that means we're going to forego actually using a barrel attachment because we don't necessarily need it. We're not going to use the FSS Lite or the FSS Mini. There's just no inherent reason for us to use that. These just really aren't viable options to use on the MP5, and to be honest, if you're using either one of these, you're probably just a little bit lost because you're losing bullet velocity and you're also losing bullet velocity and now recoil control with this one. So we're definitely not going to go down there and use that one. Now we're actually going to go down here is we're going to find our underbarrel attachment. So a lot of people like running the Commando. I've seen a lot of people run the Merc, the Ranger. Not very many people run the Tactical or the Operator, but I know the Merc foregrip does give you a lot of really good, you know, recoil control, hipfire accuracy, but actually for this build in particular, we're gonna go ahead and choose the Ranger foregrip because I made an MP5 video and I was really feeling the Ranger foregrip. I was like, you know what? This has to be my foregrip of choice. I mean, just the Ranger, it's so good. So we're gonna go ahead and choose the Ranger. And now next up, we're gonna go in here to our ammunition. And so this is another one of those things that comes down to preference. But in my opinion, and what has worked the best for me in multiplayer and also in Warzone, is using the 45-round magazine as opposed to the 30-round magazine. Granted, you lose a little, you know, fire rate, recoil control, but I mean, you know, the 30 round, but the 45, I mean, it's so good. It really just is genuinely so good. So we're gonna go ahead here and use our 45 round magazine on this gun because, you know, it's just, you know, that good. Next up here, we're gonna actually go into their rear grip section. So we have a variety of options here. We have the rubberized, the granulated, the stippled, but you guys kind of know the drill by now. We're gonna go ahead and actually choose the stippled because that ADS speed, that sprint to fire speed, obviously with an SMG, we want to be able to ADS, you know, sprint to fire very fast. So now we have 4 options chosen, and we have something that you guys actually can do. So what I've actually been running recently is I go down here and I will choose something like, let's say, Sleight of Hand, and that would finish out my MP5 setup. But if I don't necessarily want to run Sleight of Hand, and I don't really think, I'm like, okay, well, I'm not running a laser, I'm not going to run an optic, I'm not going to run a barrel. What I'll actually go ahead and go over here and do is run the FTAC collapsible stock, and this is also an incredibly awesome thing to be able to run on your MP5. So you guys can 100% run this as your MP5 class setup, and this would be absolutely amazing. You guys are gonna love this thing, so make sure you guys go to try this out, as this is their number 2 thing for our top 5 classes. So coming in here for our halfway point, more or less our number 3 out of 5, this gun is an absolutely incredible gun to use basically in multiplayer, obviously, and in Warzone. But we're gonna make a very mobile, agile class setup for this, and you're just gonna absolutely delete people with this gun. The Kilo 141 is no joke, and you guys should definitely not take it as a joke, you know, whatsoever. So obviously, you guys, you know, we have the muzzle attachment, but we're actually going to forego using a muzzle attachment at all. I normally say use the monolithic suppressor, but hey, don't worry, your boy Chuck's got you covered. We're going to go in here to the barrel section, and we actually, you know, we have the Singard arms, you know, 16.6, the 19.8 Prowler, and then the arms Whisper, which is actually going to be our heavy-duty integrated suppressor with the monolithic core. So basically, this is like an integrated monolithic suppressor. So we're actually going to go ahead and choose this because I think this is going to be a very good option to give you guys that mobility. And I mean, man, it's just really good compared to actually throwing on, like, let's say something like we go down here to the monolithic and then throwing on like the 19.8, which is a very non-mobility, you know, like build. So we're not going to go ahead and do that. We're actually going to throw on the arms Whisper, and now we're actually going to go down to our underbarrel, which we're going to have a variety of different options here. So we have the Commando foregrip, we have the Merc, obviously, and then the rest of these, like I always say. But we're actually going to go ahead and we're going to go down here to the Ranger foregrip, and we're actually going to go ahead and choose this thing thing because it's really, really good for vertical recoil control, and that's actually what this gun is going to have a little bit more of, just because it's going to be, you know, it's going to have a little bit more time to bounce around just because of all the different, you know, attachments we're going to put on it. So we need to counteract that vertical recoil it's going to have, and the range of foregrip is going to be perfect for giving us an agile build while still maintaining our recoil control. So we're actually going to go ahead and put that on there, and now we actually have to go down here to our ammunition, and now we have a variety of options. So now we have a 50 round magazine, a 60 round magazine, and also a 100 round drum magazine, and so that's why it makes the Kilo 141 very unique. I used to always run the 100 round drum mag, and that was basically like my go-to because this thing was absolutely incredible like that. But I've actually kind of since, you know, moved away from using that, and I've actually only been using the 50 and the 60 round magazine. And for this build in particular, we're actually going to go ahead and use the 60 round magazine just because we're going to have so much mobility that we can afford to have those 10 extra bullets in there. So that's why, you know, we're going to use the 60 round magazine. It's going to be absolutely incredible. So next up here we have our rear grip, and we have, you know, obviously a few options: granulated, rubberized, and the stippled. And so what we're actually gonna go ahead and do is we're gonna have so much control really anyways that we don't necessarily need to use the rubberized. What we're gonna go ahead and do is take the stippled because like I said, you know, this is a rushing AR type of setup. We're trying to be in their face, take them out. You know, we're trying to drop the streaks. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So we're gonna use the stippled grip tape here, and that's gonna be our fourth attachment. And now we're actually gonna go ahead here, and we have obviously, you know, attachments for, you know, a laser. We're not gonna do that. Nothing on the optic side of things. We could use a stock, we could use a perk, but we're actually going to go in here to the stock, and for our final attachment, we're going to go ahead and choose the no stock attachment for the Kilo 141, as this is just like a fantastic setup to run around with. I mean, bro, you really can't go wrong with this thing here. I mean, running all these attachments, this is a very compact sort of, you know, setup for the Kilo 141, but it's going to allow you to rush around and absolutely delete people. You're going to be, you know, dropping a lot of streaks. You're going to thank me later for this. I was, you know, playing with this last night, and I absolutely was loving it. Go ahead, give it a shot. So now we have to take a look at a weapon that actually literally just got buffed here as of like today, as the time I'm making this video, the ISO. So this gun actually got buffed, you know, basically kind of significantly, in which actually makes it very much so delete people, basically no matter which mode you play. I thought it was fantastic already as is, but it then actually got a buff. So we're gonna go ahead and take advantage of that and show you guys how to make a very overpowered class setup for using the ISO. Okay, so we're actually gonna go ahead and we're gonna start this off in the barrel category because we're just gonna forego our muzzle altogether, because the ISO is more or less like the Kilo and, you know, some other weapons where it does have, you know, an integrated suppressor in here. But like I said, we have, you know, all these different sort of options here: the Dominator, the Revolution, which actually is basically your longest barrel, which you would pair more or less with a monolithic suppressor. We have the ISO, the, you know, the CQB barrel, which you basically should never use. And we have the FSS Nightshade, which it actually has, you know, your damage range, recoil control, bullet velocity, sound suppression at, you know, the cost of some aim down sight speed, movement speed. But, you know, that's basically like with any more or less, you know, good barrel in Modern Warfare. So we're gonna use that as our first attachment, since we basically don't have to use anything with our muzzle, and we have one selected, and we're basically, you know, got the 2-for-1. We're gonna go down here to our underbarrel, and we don't necessarily need that much recoil control for this gun. And honestly, I would normally say use the Merc or something like the Ranger, but honestly, using the Commando foregrip on this gun is actually really viable, and I find it to be very easy to maintain my recoil control while actually using the Commando foregrip, and it doesn't slow me down as much. So you guys are really gonna have a lot of fun with this one. So we have that as our second option. Next up, we have to go into the ammunition here, because this thing has got an abysmal, you know, ammo count. It comes with like 20 round stock, and even if you throw on the 30 round, that basically only brings you up to maybe being on par with the other SMGs that don't have an extended clip on them already. So we're just going to entirely forego actually using a 30 round mag, and we're just going to go straight to the 50 round drum magazine. I feel like this is a 100% necessary attachment to use on the ISO at all points in time. No matter how you are outfitting your class setup, you need the 50 round drum mag. Seriously, don't ever use this. And this thing actually just got a buff. You know, like, I think it actually doesn't negatively affect your ADS speed, your movement speed nearly as much as it did previously. So that's basically even better, and it's giving you more reason to use the 50 round drum mag on the ISO. So we're actually gonna go ahead and throw on the 50 round drum mag. So now that we have 3 out of our 5 attachments, you know, here chosen, now we have a lot of different options to go with. But we're actually gonna go right over here to our rear grip, and obviously you guys can see we have the Vice ISO, the Elite, and we have the TAC form. So we have 3 different options here, which are all gonna be great. But the one we're actually gonna be going with here is actually gonna be the FTAC Elite ISO grip, and that's just because this is going to give us that ADS speed or sprint to fire speed. And this is one of those guns where you just want to get up in people's faces. You really just want to absolutely, delete them. And this is going to help you do that. So that is going to be our fourth attachment on our ISO. And now, like, basically like this, we could really, if we wanted to, just go down here and maybe run something like Sleight of Hand and more or less call it a day, just because this gun is just really good with these 4 attachments already. I mean, so you could definitely 100% do that. But if you actually like the reload speed on this gun already, you maybe don't want to necessarily run like a laser or something else like that, which, some people do more or less like in Warzone, but in multiplayer, you don't really have to do that. At first, we're just going to go over to the stock category, and, there's obviously all these different variations, but we're actually just going to run the ISO collapsible or the ISO collapsible just because it gives us that movement speed, the ADS speed, and this gun is just super easy to control recoil wise. So honestly, if you're running around with this thing in multiplayer, I mean, close quarters to medium range, you're just going to be an absolute, like, domination deleting machine, and you're just going to take out a lot of people. I love rushing around. I like being mobile. So this is going to really help you do that in multiplayer. I mean, or Warzone. I mean, you can run this as a secondary in there. It's going to be great either way. And for our final gun to use, we could not miss using the Grau 5.56. This is just an incredible gun that, everybody's going to have to use. It doesn't matter really, honestly, if it is multiplayer or if it is Warzone. It's highly dominant in either game. So we're basically going to have to make a gun with this class setup. We're just going to have to make a class setup with this gun. I don't know why I just said that. Either way, now we're going to jump into the muzzle category here. And, like I say, if you don't got the monolithic, use the tactical. But if you have, everything else unlocked, use the monolithic. You just don't ever mess with any of this other stuff. The compensator, the lightweight, the muzzle brake, breacher device, flash guard, all this stuff really, I think, is just kind of pointless. So just go ahead and use the monolithic, especially because we're all playing pubs. We're not trying to, get out here, to play some competitive game modes. I mean, it doesn't really matter. We're just trying to stay off the radar, get a little sound suppression going in here, and, thankfully boost our, our damage range a little bit. So our monolithic, it's just going to be good like that. Next up, this is where you can get into some real good debates here. So obviously we got the Drifter, we got, the Archangel, the Zen, and then we also have the Nexus. And honestly, I flip-flop back and forth between using the Archangel and the Nexus. I mean, to be honest, sometimes I will run the Nexus in, multiplayer, and I'm like, wow, this thing absolutely deletes. And then other times I'll run the Archangel multiplayer, and I'm like, wow, this thing absolutely deletes. But for the purposes of this, specific build, we're gonna go ahead and choose the Archangel because it is more or less the top barrel with damage range, bullet velocity, recoil control. It's all good stuff, honestly. You just really can't go wrong with either or of these. But like I said, for this video, we're choosing the Archangel. But next up, we go down here to the underbarrel, and honestly, you really don't have to get too crazy with this thing. Like, you genuinely really don't. I mean, you can really just keep it simple and just go with the Commando foregrip. I mean, this gun doesn't have that much recoil to begin with. You just need a little bit more recoil stabilization and aiming stability. That's it, just a little bit. You don't want to start messing with your movement speed too much. So we are just going to go with the Commando. I mean, we already got a lot of recoil control with the Tempest, Archangel, so we don't really need that much. But now we're going to go down here to our ammunition, and obviously, it's got 30 round stock, but we now have the option for 50 round and 60 round magazines. And so what we're actually going to go ahead and do is, I mean, you know what? I think I'm going to have to go ahead and choose the 60 round magazine just because, I mean, I want to delete people really fast, and this isn't necessarily like a mobility type of build. This is just a gun that's going to delete people any and all ranges. So we're going to go with the 60 round magazine here. And as you guys can see, now we have 4 attachments on our Grau picked out, and we are 100% not going to go for the no stock because the no stock has definitely been nerfed, and we want to be able to have that aiming stability, so we're not going to go for the no stock. Actually, what we're going to go ahead and go for is we're going to go down here to our rear grip, and we're actually going to go and choose one of these. So we have the Void Mark II or the Void, 2, the Cronin Sniper Elite, and the F-Tac 89 rubber. So we don't need more recoil control because we already got that. We don't necessarily need more aiming stability. We just need a little, ADS speed, sprint to fire speed, because this isn't a 100%, type of, mobility build. And we already have a little bit more slowness with the 60 round on the Archangel. We just need a little bit more mobility here. Just got to counteract that. So now we have our final gun here for our top classes to use in Modern Warfare. This has been a fantastic video. Hopefully you guys have learned something from this. If you guys have, slap a like on this, subscribe. And for sure, do not forget to go check out any of these other videos here up on screen. These are also very awesome videos. Thank you so much for coming through. I genuinely really appreciate you. But until next time, just don't be Randy, and I'm out. Peace.